So hi, this is Josh with Content Marketing Media, and today I'm going to share with you what I think is probably the most robust cold email workflow we've ever built in Clay. What's exciting about this is that it gives you a lot of different options. So it's going to give you the options to pull LinkedIn data. It's going to give you the options to use a couple different models, some of the best models on the planet. So let me get started and walk you through it. So you can see our sample data here. We've got myself, we've got the CEO of Microsoft and the CEO of OpenAI, and we've just got what you normally get from lead data. And so we've got first name, last name, email, job title, website, and then we use a Clay enrichment, obviously, to normalize the company name so we get better output. And then really the only Clay credit we're using here, which is, entirely optional, is we're pulling in, enriching the company. And we do that because we feel it gives us better options down the road when we do some of our enrichments. But again, entirely an option, an optional thing for you. And so as you can see, we pull in the LinkedIn of the company URL, again, the name and the website, industry, a little bit of a description directly from their LinkedIn page. And then we start with our research. So part of why I've built this and built on previous workflows that I've done before is because I constantly hear that, Clay is expensive. And yes, it can be depending on which road you go, but it doesn't have to be. And so I'm going to show you today how you can use different model options, whether it be OpenAI, whether it be, down the road here, we're going to show you how we use Claude. And then we're even going to show you Cohere, which is our newest input into, our builds. And it's pretty exciting because you're going to have a lot of flexibility with this workflow. I mean, you're going to need a little bit of Clay knowledge, but you have flexibility to use the outputs you want and then use the inputs you want. And using three different large language models that really do different things but have tremendous impact. So let's start there with this business research. So here what we do, just so you can see the workflow, and you'll see this, is that I like to use the reporter persona because they're really, really good at research. And so a lot of my prompts are written from the reporter persona. But you see we ask in the prompt to go in and pull in the secure website, even the unsecure website if they have one, and give us 3 to 4 paragraphs. And if you were going to draft a press release, you'd want to be very, very detailed about the business. So that's why we take that persona. And then if we can't get enough information, then we ask it to look up the company name on Google. So this is really the power of ClayGent, where you can do multiple things at once. And I want to show you in these prompts, in this particular prompt, we're actually using GPT 3.5. So I hear a lot about the cost component, but at the end of the day, this costs tens of cents of pennies on the dollar. So I'm going to move on and just show you, a couple examples of that. So we get pretty detailed research, right? This is my website. You can see it's quoting where we've done work across the world. It's talking about the services we offer. Here's Microsoft. I mean, a little bit less detailed, which is okay because we're going to show you in a minute how we build on that. Same thing with OpenAI. So you're going to get varying results on these with 3.5 especially, which is why it's important that we enhance that. And so I'm going to take the next step here and show you our next prompt, which is done with OpenAI. Again, it's done with 3.5 Turbo. And here we're pulling in the results of our first one, and then we're adding in some of our lead data. So this is our lead data that we're getting from the LinkedIn enrichment. But again, it could be lead data that you pull in. And we're just asking it to build on what we've done in the first prompt. So as I look at that, now you see, with our business, a lot more structured data. If we go into Microsoft, you can see, if you remember from the first output, a lot more robust data because we're basically chaining GPT runs and putting that data together. And we've learned with GPT, any of these large language models, the more you feed it detailed information, the better output you get. And again, these two prompts alone, again, making that cost argument, these two prompts alone are thousands of cents on the dollar per lead, right? So just imagine using ClayGent, using GPT combined, pulling this level of detail of information on any given business, and then building from there, right? And we're going to show you how we turn this research into a custom email, but the amount of detail we can pull, thousands of leads at a time, for less than 99 cents is crazy and impactful. So thanks to Brandon Charlson and exploring Cohere, I took a little time and learned about this model. This is more of a large language model for enterprises, but what it does offer is something extremely unique, which is the ability to access the web. And so, like ClayGent, what it can do is go out and do research on the web. So this was new to me. I took some time to understand it. And then because it works so well, I built it into what we do. And so I want to show you the Cohere prompt. It's only accessed today via HTTP or via API. And so you have to feed it with a prompt. And so we have a prompt that we've written, and you can see it's very similar to our previous prompts. And we're just feeding it the website and information, almost identical to the previous prompt. And then Cohere is going out and doing that searching as well. And then we're getting more results, right? So you can see again, here is another unique large language model, very similar to ClayGen, that goes out and gets information from the web. I can tell you, because this is my business, this is a highly detailed result. It's speaking to case studies that I have on my website. It's talking about where I'm located. It's referencing my LLC, which I'm sure is mentioned somewhere. And it's talking about the things that my company does. If you go further into Microsoft, you can see the level of detail that it's providing. So it is truly going out and getting a lot of information that is a lot more detailed. And so the power of this combining with the other prompts just makes what we do that much more powerful as far as reaching out to businesses. So really excited about this development. And I'll just show you OpenAI as well, right? So we're pulling in, it's referencing GPT, DALL-E, ChatGPT, OpenAI's API platform. How ironic was, what we're using in this workflow. GPT-4, I think you probably saw even the previous prompt reference Sora. And then, obviously we like to pull in confidence levels because not everybody has good data, good websites. And so you can't always necessarily get everything for every company. So we utilize the confidence level to evaluate, the level of detail we're getting. But from that, I think it's important to stress we've now built a base of research, right? So whether you're using ClayGent with GPT, whether you're enhancing that data with LinkedIn, and we talked about you can do that, thousands of cents on the dollar, or Cohere, which definitely costs a little bit more, and I'll show you that in a minute. It's all about making choices per lead. So you understand what your cost per lead is. And then once you know that, then you say, okay, I can build it this way, I can build it that way, I can use 4 if I want better results in GPT or GPT-4 Turbo versus GPT 3.5. And that's how we built this workflow. So you can understand what the implications are of your decisions because, pennies on the dollar don't necessarily matter for one particular lead, but when you multiply that by 1,000 or 20,000, which is what we do every week, it's a significant cost, and you need to understand that cost in relation to the output and the quality of the output, and then ultimately what is your return on investment. So to go a little bit further with this prompt, this is where we've done some extreme level of customization. We want it to be able to be used by any business, and we want people to be able to take this prompt, go in, substitute their particular offer, and still email businesses in a way that is unique, that's specific to the business, that addresses their pain points, and ultimately still introduces your service. So with these 3 examples, this field right here called your offer, we're giving you the ability to introduce your own offer. And so I'm showing you, for example, that in this case, we talk about local SEO. In the next case, we talk about Facebook ads. And then in the third one, we do lead generation, by cold email and YouTube ads. So we just did that, for sake of argument. But in these examples, what we're showing you is that we can introduce multiple offers. And I want to show you the ultimate output here. So we've developed 3 outputs, and they're all designed differently so you can understand the quality versus the cost, right? So the first one, this is a GPT-4 prompt. We're using GPT-4 Turbo plus Cohere. So this one's a little bit more expensive because we're basically running somewhere around, I would say, 6 cents a run. And you can see right here what the output is, and I'll show you the prompt because these prompts are pretty similar across the board. So we're combining the results of all three research points and creating three unique opening sentences to an email. So imagine those three research points that we showed you previously. We're combining those, analyzing those, and then we're creating three custom paragraphs. And you'll see this in the prompts, but we ask it, don't assume anything, be professional, don't be over complimentary, you know, introduce what you're doing. And then we've injected the research plus the offer, right? So that's why it works, because it substitutes your offer into the prompt. And so you can dive into these but as you can see for this one, GPT-4 and Cohere, this is the quality of email we would be sending. So very detailed, very specific to what our company does, very specific to the offer, and then really, wrapping that up in the third sentence. And the next one, I'll just show you a different example. So here we're saying we understand what Microsoft does, and we notice there's an opportunity to work together on innovation and reach. We've introduced now the Facebook ads and Google PPC, which is what the offer is for this particular line. And then we wrap that up with a professional sentence. And then finally, same thing with OpenAI. We're introducing, what they do. We're talking about how they're a pivotal player, obviously, in advancing technology. I think it's really cool that it addresses their ethical considerations, because they're very, very big on ethics when it comes to AI as well. And then we introduce what we do, right? So in this particular, this is particular to that unique offer. And the third one, we tie that off. Again, if you remember, it mentions YouTube ads and cold emails as the offer. So we bring that all together in the third sentence. So the important thing to understand is that these outputs are extremely dynamic. They change to the customer and they change to the offer, and that's what makes them powerful. They're never going to be unique. I mean, they're never going to be the same. They're always going to be unique, and they're going to drive significant results for you. Additionally, you're not going to have to worry about spam per se, because as long as you don't include links, you follow normal practices, you're never sending the same email or marketing outreach twice. Now, we wanted to give you that option as well, but we wanted to do it in a cost-effective way. So if you scroll down to the next one, we look at the email body, except this time we only use 3.5 turbo. And so that's important, because from a cost perspective, that really cuts down the cost of this workflow entirely to somewhere around, 7/10 of a cent per lead, which is just ridiculously cheap for what we're doing. And I would tell you the output of that, or the result of that, is just the quality is not as good, right? So if you look at the output of this one, you see, it's the sentences are longer. There's parentheses, but it works, right? So it would definitely give you an opportunity to tweak this a little bit, make this prompt your own, but it still accomplishes the same thing. It pulls in research and it creates a response that's specific to the business, introduces your service. I don't know that I would use this, because I don't think it meets the quality standards that I want, but it doesn't mean you can't tweak this prompt to make it better, or really cut it down to two sentences, etc. Right? That's all just, messing with the prompt engineering. And then finally, this is where we bring in our third model. We're going to bring in Claude Opus, which, is obviously just released within the last week or two. Some would argue it's better than GPT-4, at least in the statistical test. It scored better in a lot of the contextual test. And so I wanted to bring it in because I think it gives a different perspective. And when you look at the Claude output itself, it definitely comes across differently, right? So you remember seeing those three outputs before. Here's the first one, here's the second one, and then here's the third one with Claude. So, when you look at Claude, you look at GPT-4, the costs are relatively similar. So I think it's more of a personal choice. You could obviously edit the prompts. The nice thing about Claude is it is built in directly to Clay. And so it's very easy to edit the prompts. Whereas when you go back to Cohere, you're doing it via an API call. So it's not as easy, but you definitely still can edit the prompts, right? So finally, to wrap this up, I wanted to show you the cost, right? So I had to do a little bit of work behind the scenes, because with Claude and Cohere, they're calculated costs based off a million inputs or outputs. And so we put that in a spreadsheet, and then we, inputted formulas in here so you could see what the costs were, because it's definitely different from output to input. But this just gives you an idea of what these costs are. And so like the clay gent research that we do in the very beginning, 3/1000ths of a penny. LinkedIn ridiculously, low as well when we add in LinkedIn to ClayGen. We do pay one Clay credit for that, but you could live and get great results without the LinkedIn enhancement, even without the Clay credit. I like it because it just makes the output that much better. And then I have obviously additional information about the company. Where it gets a little bit more expensive is with Cohere because this is enterprise grade level large language model, and so it's very very good. Like it's the research of Cohere is phenomenal, at least what I've seen so far. And so I have noticed that it will sometimes error out if you try to be too complex with your prompt, but at least with this workflow you already have the prompt so you can use it from here. And so here are the Cohere cost, and then I wanted to show you the output cost, right? So if we just use GPT-4, we're talking about 2 cents a lead. If we're using 3.5, again, just ridiculously cheap, 1/1000th of a penny. And then when we use Claude combined with, our Cohere research, then it gets a little bit more expensive, 5 to 6 cents a lead. So at the end of the day, I wanted to leave you with a lot of options. There's some, I'll wrap it up with a couple things in here is that we left some of the things that we're not using available to you. So if you unfilter the columns, you can see all of the columns where, we've measured the output and the input tokens for some of these models. We measured the cost. We just wanted to make it clean in the visual, so we turned those off, but they are there, so you can see those. And then I just want to show you real quickly the graph, right? So this is definitely our most complex model, but you can see if you study the graph how all of these things integrate, right? And then some of the columns that we've left out. So pretty powerful model. It gives you options to really choose how you want to do cold email and at what cost, and also with what quality output. So we hope you find value in this. We'll be sharing this workflow on LinkedIn and on Facebook, and we'd love to dive in deeper with you if you have any additional questions. Thank you.